Hello and a very warm welcome to the Adventure Show. This month we're in the mecca for windsurfing in the UK. A year ago we were here to cover the Tiree Wave Classic, but in this programme we'll follow a couple of the competitors in the 12 months leading up to this year's competition.
I think this year I had more big wave wipeouts than I've ever had before. I was turning back onto this wave and I was too late and the wave had already started to break and the thing just like engulfed me and I just got spat around under the water, like washed down to the bottom, and I could feel the sand underneath, and there's about, I don't know, 20 feet of water on top of me, and I was just like...
I came up too late, it closed out right on me, put me straight down. I was on the bottom and I was going nowhere, and I must have counted probably 10 seconds, 9 seconds, which doesn't sound a lot, but when I wave ride I hold my breath. So as I go to the bottom I've got no air anyway, and it's quite scary, you know.
Also in this month's show, we'll find out why Tiree's landscape is providing inspiration to a new generation of inhabitants, from artists to cooks. Further afield, Ronnie McLeod's been scaling new heights, and we discover why a London barrister left the courtroom drama behind and opted for a life of adventure instead. But first, why attach yourself to a large plank with an equally large sail and fling yourself into the biggest waves the Atlantic can throw at you? Well, only a fanatical windsurfer can answer that question, and one of the UK's top women is Louise Emery.
It's a wonderful experience to actually just to sail along normally and then to get into the waves and to get into jumping. You're in the water. It's really hard to describe without actually being there and doing it yourself, but it's just a really lovely feeling, and it's a million miles away from everything that happens on land. As soon as you step on the water, it's just you and your board and your sail and the wave coming towards you, and are you going to get wiped out? The whole world around you is just the waves and the water, and that's what matters. Then you come back and step on land, and then everything that's involved in modern life hits you, and it's back to reality.
It's really difficult to explain the buzz you get from windsurfing. And you speak to any windsurfer and it takes over their lives. I mean, when I was at college, you used to go to college and you'd be sitting there working and you see the trees moving and you're getting text messages from your mates who are windsurfing, and you cannot concentrate, you cannot work, you can't do anything, you just focus about getting to the beach. I mean, and that's really difficult to explain to someone, really difficult. It's the buzz of riding the waves or even flat water doing a trick, and you just get such a good sense of satisfaction when you've learned something or you're just trying something new, or the feeling of actually just wave riding and using the sort of wave to create speed. It's very difficult to explain.
Some days you can jump 30, 40 feet maybe. It's quite high when you're up there. So yeah, it's real exciting. For me, jumping's the favourite part of windsurfing, because you know you can just fly towards a big ramp, and the feeling of just getting projected off the lip straight up in the air. You don't know how high you're going to go until you start going up and up and up and up. And you can actually control your sail and get a bit more wind under it, and you can float and go a little bit higher. So that's a really good feeling. And then when you get to the top, you've got to look down, see where you've got to go. It's an awesome feeling.
Another of the top women who's pushing the limits is Ruth Elliott, and it's the biggest of the big waves that entice her out, and the height you can get with them.
I love doing that. A lot of women don't, I'm not quite sure why, but I think, you know, the windier it is and the bigger the waves, the better. It really gets the heart going. Although people sometimes see it as a lonely sport, there is a lot of communication on the water, just watching what other people are doing and, you know, give them a wave, checking people are all right, and then that all comes back into chatting back on the beach or later in the evening. So I wouldn't really say it's a solitary sport either. It's kind of a mix of both, which is nice.
And Ruth is no stranger to learning the hard way. One recent experience literally wiped a smile from her face.
I was trying to Vulcan. I'd finally learned how to do it. I was very happy with myself. I was excited. And then the mast hit me in the face. Lost a lot of teeth, so wasn't happy. And I've now decided it's probably cheaper and far easier to break your arm than lose any teeth whatsoever.
So it's not all glamour on or off the waves. Bruised egos are also part of the game. At last year's Tiree Wave Classic, some competitors were not too happy with the way the event was handled. Here's a reminder of how our top two professional windsurfers, Phil Horrocks and Ben Prophet, fared in 2005. The event had some of the best wave conditions ever seen on the island. It provided an ideal opportunity for these two rivals to show who was the best as they challenged for the all-important wave title, the most coveted of the three disciplines that make up Tiree's Triple Crown. It's 6 o'clock and the windsurfers have been on the go since midday, and the winds are definitely beginning to drop as they head out for the final. With the wind slackening off, the judges have allowed 20 minutes to give the sailors a chance to wait for the best waves. And in these conditions, the early ones are likely to be the best. And Ben Prophet's coming straight in here. Good carving turns. Lovely movement, very nice indeed. And a good length of wave as well. Next off, John Skye. Carving nicely. Wave's starting to look very dirty at this stage of the competition. Oh, and he's over. Ben Prophet's certainly making the most of things at the beginning of this final. This is his second wave. It looks like another good one. Turning back into the dirty water. Losing a bit of momentum. Looking around for the best options. Is he choosing the right ones though? No, he's not. No, he's down. Phil Horrocks now. Let's see what he can pull off. Making use of the swell. Conditions definitely starting to close in. But this looks like not a bad wave. Turning back onto the top, using the power of the wave. Oh, he's been caught by it too. It's definitely getting pretty tricky for the riders out there. Jonas Sanchez here, looking pretty good. Although he's definitely feeling the cold today. Tiree's definitely a different proposition from surfing in Spain, but he is doing well. And there it is, the red flag, the end of the contest and decision time for the judges. And at the end of this round, Jonas Sanchez came in second, Phil Horrocks third, but winning the final was Ben Prophet. And this is the winning run from him. And that could have been the end of the 2005 Triple Crown, but nothing's ever certain in the Tiree Wave Classic till the last sails are docked and the boards are loaded onto the vans. The judges decided there was the time and the weather for just one more event. It counted as the second round of the wave discipline. In this case, it's the jumps that score the points. Results from this had changed the ratings in both the wave discipline and the overall Triple Crown. First, the final results for the wave event. John Skye crept up into third place. Jonas Sanchez moved into second, with Ben Prophet hanging on to first place to become the Tiree Wave Classic champion, to his obvious delight.
That is definitely the one. Out of the three, that is the one. I mean, all the boys here want to win the Wave Classic. I mean, it's got a proper title. It's the Tiree Wave Classic.
Good news for Ben Prophet, but quite a different story for Phil Horrocks, who was pushed down into 7th place in the wave discipline, and at the end of the week was still fuming that the event organisers had put in that extra final round.
The idea of the Tiree Wave Classic is that at some point there should be waves involved, and when they just throw it in as jumping, just 3 jumps and no wave rides, it kind of offsets the whole reason for why we're here.
Right.
And the conditions weren't exactly good waves either. There wasn't like much to jump off. I found it difficult. 5-minute heat with 5 guys all going out at the same time looking for 1 or 2 ramps here and there made it real difficult to score well. So I don't know. Just over it.
So after a year of chasing waves and competing against each other around the world, Phil and Ben are back in Tiree, with last year's score to settle.
We've been practicing for the whole year, so I mean the last couple of weeks have been really good in the UK. They've been really good conditions, and it looks like they're going to follow on for at least the next 3 days. So yeah, it should be good.
I think what I've been practicing most on this year is wave sailing, and that's the one I really want to win, because I think that's the most fun part of windsurfing as well, and everybody loves it. And to be the best at it as well is the hardest thing to do. So really, that's the goal.
So the top surfers have arrived here with big ambitions. But before we get started with this year's event, I've got my own abject defeat from last year to sort out. My failure to find one of this island's most famous landmarks. But Duncan McCallum's already ahead of me, determined to be there first.
Is this the way up to the stone, the ringing stone?
Ringing stone, yeah.
Good, you've not seen Dougie Vipon walking around looking very lost? Oh, BBC guy.
No.
No? Okay.
No one knows how the ringing stone came to be here, or why it really does make that special sound. Islanders thought it might have had a religious significance, but my failure to actually find it was, how shall I put it, 100% total failure.
Hello, over here, yeah. If you're going to come out looking for the ringing stone, let me suggest you take a map, a compass and some coordinates, unlike me.
Dougie, when you're walking around in the hill, there are other very important things you need to use apart from an OS map to find particular sites, and those are the clues. And the path, of course.
I've been out for an hour now, can't find the thing. This isn't it. It's kind of like this, but a bit more mystical. Just imagine, yeah?
Another little clue to this mystery is a great big round boulder sitting in the shoreline. I have no idea how we missed that last year.
Can't believe none of them brought a map. I mean, they're experienced adventure filmmakers, for goodness sake. None of them brought a map. I said to them, bring a map. Did they bring a map? No, they didn't.
According to this, it's been sitting here for 10,000 years, so Dougie, the next time, just follow the signs. So as I clamber up onto one of the oldest pieces of rock in the UK, I'm going to leave my ringing stone for Dougie for next year, and hopefully he'll find it.
And whilst Duncan's got his walking boots on, there's one place here that no one should have any difficulty finding, but it's best seen at night.
The mobile signal in Tiree is not that great, but with this little thing, I can email and call Paris and organise flights. But back in 1843, when they built the Heinisch Semaphore Tower to communicate with the Skerryvore Lighthouse, which sits about 12 miles offshore, the only way to do it was with flashing lights. So that could tell Jimmy on the rock that something disastrous was going to happen, or he could tell them in there that he'd run out of toothpaste. This great big granite building and this tiny little packet, about 150 years worth of difference.
You might think that very little changes on a place like Tiree, but you'd be wrong. The last year has seen an influx of new people arrive on the island. Becky Wright was so inspired by the landscape of Tiree that she left her job in Northumberland and set up a business on the island. She's a jeweller, but she's found an unusual business partner and place to work.
Tiree Chocolate, handmade on Tiree. Now that's not something I would have expected to find here. Chocolate actually made in Tiree.
Yeah, well that's kind of the idea behind it. We wanted to sort of have the unexpected chocolate and jewellery together. What a girl needs on a remote island, really.
And the silver stuff as well you do is special as well, isn't it?
It's fine silver, so it's 99.9% silver, so it's quite a lot softer than sterling silver, but it's great for pendants. It's brilliant to work with because it's some malleable. This actually is a shell that someone found on the beach that they liked, a limpet shell, and they brought to me, and I can put it in a mould, like a rubber compound, and then I take it out of there, leave it for sort of half an hour, and then I can push the silver into the mould and get an exact replica of the actual shell. And it's great because it works with glass as well. You do this in a kiln, so you can use silver and glass together, which you couldn't really do before.
The other half of this unusual partnership is Jo Thompson, who's also new to the island and new to chocolate making. But is she eating the profits away?
I do eat quite a lot of it, but my excuse is you've got to taste it to make sure it's all right.
So what is it you're going to do here?
These are malt whisky truffles, so I'm just dipping them and rolling it in flakes.
Now one thing I want to ask you is about, I've been looking at some of the chocolates in the shop. You've got some shiny ones there. How can you possibly make chocolate shiny?
Well, if you're doing it right, it should be shiny. You have to get the chocolate onto temper. So basically you have to get the temperature right and stir it so it's got the right crystalline structure.
Have you had any ones that you've tried to make that just haven't worked?
Yeah, to start with, but then you just tweak the recipe and keep trying until you get it right. And you can always eat the ones that don't work.
That's not a bad job, actually. At what point can we actually savour the finished article?
If I get one of the first ones out, you could probably try it now.
Yeah. I'm willing to kind of, if it's particularly hot, that's absolutely fine. I can live with that.
It might drip down your chin.
I'll try another one. Maybe.
Try it on?
Well, just in being a presenter that likes to do things, actually be involved in the. Well, that's not half bad. Not half bad at all.
Thought you might like that.
Very nice.
This island's fabled for its clarity of light, and it's that, together with its ever-changing patterns, that has provided the inspiration for another new resident. Colin Woodcock is a potter, and he's brought with him an unusual style of work from Japan.
Just before we moved to the island, we were looking for things that we could produce for our gallery, and although I had been a potter for a long time, the pots that I was producing then were stoneware pots, and they were quite dull in colour, and I really wanted to try and represent this sort of bright, strong colours that you get on Tiree in the pottery. Raku essentially is heating a pot up with a glaze on it to about 1,000 degrees, and then lifting the pot out of the kiln when it's still very hot and allowing it to cool down very quickly, and the surface is crazed, and that means very small hairline cracks appear on the surface.
Obviously, a lot of people, if you've been a potter in the past, cracked glaze is probably a bad thing in many respects. You think,
that's right.
That one goes in the bin.
That's right. It's valued in Raku Pottery, yes. The two things we really need when you're doing Raku Pottery is somewhere that's calm, it's not too windy, and somewhere that has plenty of combustible material like trees. And of course, Tiree is not as neither. It's not an ideal place for that.
And it's quite an intensive process then to create them.
It is, yes. Normally with pottery, once you've made them either by hand or thrown them on the wheel, you then lose control of the pot or lose contact with the pot when it goes into the kiln. But with Raku, there's a direct physical involvement in the whole process. Normally after the firing, when the pots have been in the sawdust for about an hour or two, they're lifted out and cleaned. They'll be still quite hot, and they're very carbonated.
How hot's hot? Pretty hot.
Very hot. And the pots are finally cleaned with a further washing using a Brillo pad. It's part of the process I don't like doing, because I never like doing the dishes. But it's one of the tasks that a Raku potter has to do, unfortunately. And people really appreciate the fact that you get these transitions from turquoise blue into lustrous copper colours, and I think they're quite stunning to look at.
There's plenty to see here on Tiree, but at one time, good food would have been harder to find. Now the island's two excellent hotels have been joined by a new restaurant that serves nothing but local produce. Its message is simple. With good land and sea surrounding it, local must be best.
Why bring all your beef from the mainland when you've got beautiful beef here? I can't see the point. It's been on a boat for 4.5 hours, and I don't know where it's come from.
Yeah.
So it's just better. People can see what they're getting, and it's quality.
It's also hard enough for people to make a living without you kind of sourcing stuff from other places. It's really important to support the community and infrastructure.
Well, if I buy my meat from Nan the butcher, I buy my crab claws from Sandy and Callum, I buy my fruit and my veg whenever possible from Derek Plant, then hopefully if I put money in their pockets, they'll come back and put money in my pockets.
Yeah. Can I put some money in your pockets tonight and have a nice meal?
You certainly can, yes.
Good.
I hope you enjoy it.
I just have to stare at Dougie all night, that's the problem.
Thank you very much.
Wow. Medium rare as well. Perfect.
That is very nice. So, plenty to keep us occupied on Tiree, which is just as well, because we've one problem here this year.
As you can see behind me, the waves are breaking true and clean. They're very glassy. The only problem is they're only about 3 inches high, and really we want them to be 3 meters high. It's very warm, almost tropical. Certainly as tropical as Tiree gets. Very beautiful, but rubbish for the competition.
So what do the windsurfers do when there's no wind and they're waiting for those elusive big waves? For some of the world's most competitive people, that's no problem. You can always find a challenge. Finally, the wind picks up. The organisers announce a warm-up event and we're off with our competitors racing for the waves. In this competition, the prize will go to the best trick the surfers can manage. It's far more difficult than it looks, especially in these light conditions, where they really have to pump the sails to get up speed. And here's Ben Prophet putting everything he's got into this run. Managed to pull off a good turn there. The best manoeuvre of the afternoon, and no one else can match it.
Mr. Ben Prophet was the winner. with plain in grubby, I believe.
I mean, this morning was touch and go, but it was windy. I mean, they probably could have pushed something through, but the forecast's really good for later in the week, so they're sort of trying to keep it sort of going. So they were holding on, and they decided to do something, you know, because it's sunny, it's a nice day, and everyone's down the beach, and everyone wants to go windsurfing. So, I mean, it was a good job they did it. It was just a shame they didn't do it a little bit earlier, and we could have got a bit more wind and seen some more action. But I mean, we still got going. Obviously, I won 100 quid and some Corona, so yeah.
And to celebrate those winnings, a night out in one of the island pubs. It's an absolutely essential part of the windsurfing lifestyle. Following the sport, it's obvious that a full-on lifestyle is as important as the surfing, and this is definitely a young person's game. Footloose, fancy-free, and living literally out the back of a van. For a top professional like John Hibbert, windsurfing's own 007, that's not as hard as it might seem.
It's split into two sections, living space and kit space. Space behind this bulkhead here is a wet box, totally sealed for 3 boards. Below that, another wet box for another three or four boards. And then behind here is storage. That's my bed up there. We've got mountain bike storage on one side, sails and rigging stuff on the other side, and then under the seat, which lifts up, that's my wardrobe. And that is actually open to the back, so I can pick up things from, you know, masts that come through or whatever, and I keep all the cables for the hookup and things like that. So yeah, it's
pretty nice.
It's all packed in nicely.
But a lot of the guys, you know, they seem to be kind of, the lifestyle's very important to them as well as the surfing, but I mean, you can seem to approach it really, really professionally.
I like the sport and I love windsurfing, but that's not gonna fill up every day of my life, you know, especially living in the UK. It's not always windy, so I want to get my teeth into something else, and the marketing and promotion of my sponsors, but also the sport is a massive thing for me, and I really enjoy that. It's funny because I think the biggest sensation you get is your first ever jump. And we're always building up to the next level. So you never get that the rush you get when you do that first jump. Think about the takeoff, your trajectory, the spin round with the rig, and you're looking for the landing. So the actual elation doesn't hit until you land. You're like, wow, that's cool. You know, you sail away really pumped up. But yeah, it's an awesome feeling just to fly through the air and spinning around. It's great.
But this year's event is a different experience for one of the top women. Louise Emery has recently become a proud parent. This is her first trip away with the new arrival, but she's determined to get back into the sport.
Oh, it's a hard life, isn't it? Why can't you just have normal parents? This is the reason why I missed the Tiree Wave Classic last year. This is little Megan, and she was born actually in September, a little bit earlier than planned, and we had a bit of a nightmare with her, but she's got there in the end, and she's basically the love of my life. My main concern is her catching something like a cold or a cough because she's a bit immunosuppressed. So staying with people was difficult because we've always stayed with groups of people and it's always good fun. And this time we thought, well, should we just get a place on our own, just the 3 of us? The thing is, we're probably one of the first, I'm probably one of the first sailors to have gone ahead and started a family. So all the other guys we know are still living out of vans. They're not very eligible bachelors. They haven't even got girlfriends, let alone married with babies. You've just got to compete. It's just in my blood really to do it. So I just thought, well, as soon as she gets, big enough and wise enough, then I'll be back. This year, I know how much training the other girls have done. I've seen them out sailing today. I know that I'm up against it, But you never know in a heat. You just never know in those 5 minutes what's going to happen. So I'll sail my best, and whatever position I come, the fact that I'm just here, managing to do it with one of these is an achievement in itself. I should get an award just for that.
This year's women's wave event will be judged on the size of the wave, the length of the ride, and the intensity of the turns. Ideally, the surfers are looking for massive winds and the biggest waves you can get. This year, there are only 2 professional women competing, Louise and Ruth Elliott. They're determined to show the guys they're not second best, but with conditions far from perfect, that is a struggle. It's a real testimony to the skill of these 2 that they're managing these turns at all. Here's Ruth. She's having to pump that sail to make the most of her wave. Now Louise with the white sail. She's managing to carve into the surf several times before the wave peters out.
They slipped it in last minute, as usual, threw the ladies out. Just the dying wind and the dying waves, but it was good to be back out on the water in the heat, and with reef as well. The usual happened. We caught each other's waves, got in each other's way, but it was great. I came off the water, I had a real buzz. It was good.
Yeah, I mean, I'd been out sailing for 2 hours already. I'd got changed, and I went down because I was like, oh, we've still got an hour to go. And they were like, oh, do you think you could go out in 6 minutes? I was like, okay, see if I can find Louise. Ran down the beach. Yeah, it was a bit last minute.
It's not easy for the judges either in these conditions, but in the end their vote went to Ruth. So this year she's taken the title for the Women's Wave Classic. Yet both girls are exasperated by the lack of top women in the sport. Sponsorship is hard to get, and without it it's too costly to compete. As the two women acknowledge, you need more competitors for this event.
I came second, but that basically means I came last. Yeah?
You came second.
I came second. Okay, I came second.
It's fine.
So when there's sort of 10 of you and you come second, second's really good.
There's no women sponsored fully in the UK, so I think all of us work. I think it's partly in terms of skill level, you know, from the base up. Women are very poorly promoted in the sport at the top. You know, simply having some coaching from the base up, someone to look up to, and just the magazines and the sponsors giving more support, you know, would be a help. It would give it a bit of a kickstart. I know, but I haven't got my face on my van like Johnny Hibbert. No. Until I get to that stage, I'm never going to be famous.
No.
But that may change in the not too distant future, because today's youngsters are here to learn from the professionals, and there's plenty of women amongst them. The Tiree Wave Classic was first held 20 years ago, yet there are no professional sailors on the circuit from the island, but that could all change. And Unishtip has been introduced here on Tiree to get the youngsters out on the water.
The only way to make progress in a light wind like this is to pump the sail, and this is going to be all about fitness really rather than windsurfing ability. You've got a much bigger board there, is that slowing you down a bit?
Well, the wind conditions are so light that a bigger board probably helps. A smaller board would probably sink easier and drag more water generally slowing us down.
Okay, keep pumping. For these kids it's really important that they have as much fun doing this as possible, so even though the conditions are pretty calm, it's about the community as well. So it's, oops, I'm sure it's taken reasonably seriously amongst some of them, but for most it's really just about actually being here and doing it.
It's just fantastic to see so many kids locally getting involved in windsurfing. There's about 45 club members now, and there's only 47 in the primary school and 52 in secondary.
How important is it that the pros are coming down and supporting this? Because I see a lot of them hanging about there having some fun. John Hibbert's out actually racing against them, failing miserably.
He's not doing too well, is he? He's getting shown up. Maybe he should just come in. But yeah, the kids love to see the pros here, and it's really nice for them to come down and show an interest in what's happening here on the local level.
It looks like you're cruising for the wooden spoon or the rubber duck.
My mum always said to me, it's not for winning, take it apart.
You need webbed feet. There we have one of the finest windsurfing competitors on the British scene, and he's getting his ass kicked by some small children.
Do you have any amongst the lot behind us that one day might win the Triple Crown here at Tiree?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's almost certainty, I would say. I think this is the smaller sail race we've got over here, and then the people with the bigger sails are out doing a different course. So yeah, this is one of the Tiree kids here on the green and blue sail. I'm not actually sure whereabouts they're headed. I hope they know.
Who's that boy? The skinny boy with the dark hair showing off there, K007. He looks all right.
He's one of ours.
He's maybe got a future, isn't he? That's John Hibbert instead. So John, you didn't do too well in that race. What's going on?
No, the kids are just too quick, really.
Yeah. But how important do you think days like this are for, the future of the sport, I guess?
Oh, massively important. I mean, when I was started windsurfing, there was none of this. You know, if you wanted to go windsurfing, you just went down your local river or beach or lake or wherever, and you went out. You know, and I had a couple of mates, and that was it. I didn't know there were so many kids on Tiree that windsurf. You know, we don't see that when we go out on the big waves and in the storms when they come through. You know, we don't see those guys. They're here on the lake practicing. You know, in the lighter winds to start with. But hopefully, over the next few years, they're going to get more experience, and we'll see them in the competition. You know, and hopefully in 4 or 5 years' time, they'll be knocking me out of the contest. You know, that's what I really hope.
Almost all of the top surfers have turned out to try their luck on the loch. And for Ruth Elliott, it's an ideal opportunity to look for new recruits.
You see out today, there's absolutely loads of women out, so that's fantastic for the next coming years.
Yeah, all the young girls winning the events and the
I
older...
would love it. I would love to retire in the knowledge that there was a lot of people better than me to replace me. It'd be fantastic.
And what team are you looking after, you know?
I don't know yet. I'm going to go and find out. I'm going to find Bagsy myself the best one.
That's not fair.
Very competitive.
Absolutely.
This year, everybody is frustrated by the lack of wind, but what's bad news for Tiree is good for the rest of Scotland, and we've no shortage of action. So we're heading east to the coastline of Fife, something the locals say is vastly underrated. This month on the Adventure Show, our wildlife feature explores Tentsmuir National Nature Reserve, a hugely impressive sand dune system sandwiched between Dundee and St Andrews on the southern mouth of the Tay estuary. This area is remarkable not only for its topographical features, but is also home to one of our largest marine mammals. Seals love basking on the shore, but with all four legs adapted into flippers, the sea is their natural habitat. Tom Cunningham spent much of his life working for British Telecom. Now he's reserve manager here and is showing wildlife cameraman Gordon Buchanan what makes this area so important.
It's just a big, massive sand dune system, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful place to come and see all the flora and fauna, particularly seals, and of course we've got cattle in at the moment, or Aberdeen Angus's we've got in this year. We describe them as the nature's lawnmowers. They just help keep the grasses down.
You obviously spend a lot of time here out on the ground. What is it for you that makes it so special here?
It's quite unique. I've sort of nicknamed it Paradise because it's so wonderful, really. Peaceful. The dunes are forever changing. Through the actions of the wind and the sea, the sand dune system grows by a finger's width every day. And we could best see that when we could look at the anti-tank traps, where they were laid down in 1940 by the Air Ministry. And we could see that the sand dune system has grown by 750 metres in 63 years.
Gordon's been given special permission to film the seals in the water, so we can get a unique insight into their natural habitat. But a word of warning. Gordon's an expert in this field. This isn't something any of us should ever attempt.
Swimming with seals isn't something I'd consider doing normally. They may look friendly enough, but they are one of the largest carnivores in our coastal waters, and if threatened can be prone to aggression. With Tom's permission, I had a rare chance to film these beautiful animals at close quarters, but I wondered what they'd make of me.
They're extremely inquisitive and they'll probably follow and come to you, I would hope.
I hope so. Is this quite a usual place for them?
Yeah, this is a really popular site.
Well, I'm just hoping they're going to stay there until I get in the water. And the water's very warm round here, I hear.
Well, not really.
Thanks for the encouragement, Tom. You can't rush filming wild animals, and I wondered just how close I'd be able to get to them. I spent almost an hour in the water, getting cold in spite of my wetsuit, but these amazing mammals were incredibly accepting of an odd-looking stranger among them.
That really was an amazing experience. I thought it was going to be a total waste of time. For the first half hour, they seemed to keep their distance and the visibility was really bad. But they started getting closer and closer. And then I saw one sort of coming out the murk in front of me, and I felt this tug on my fin, and one was right behind me. But Yeah, as soon as they got that close, they suddenly felt completely comfortable, and there was about 3 of them, I think, that were coming around me, but it's difficult to actually tell where they are. No, that was really brilliant. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
And that must be one of the highlights for any wildlife camera person. Being able to get so close to such creatures requires enormous skill. So at the risk of repeating myself, this is not something that the rest of us should ever try. And our thanks to Scottish Natural Heritage for supervising that filming. You can find out more about Tentsmuir National Nature Reserve and how SNH manage it by visiting their website at nnr-scotland.org.uk.
My nails are quite long, so do they need to come off?
It only matters when you're holding something really, really small and you have to crimp your nails right in like that.
No, the adventure show has not just become a makeover programme. Further down the Fife coastline at Aberdour, Rona McLeod is about to go climbing for the very first time. And there's no one better to take her onto vertical rock than Scotland's leading climber, Dave McLeod. Dave's recently completed the hardest traditional rock route in the world at Dumbarton Rock outside Glasgow. A route so hard he had to invent a new grade to describe its severity, E11. So, Rona's just ever so slightly, a teeny weeny bit, worried about where Dave might take her.
So Dave, what are we going to find around here?
Well, it's not that high a cliff really, but it's quite impressive just because it's above the sea, you know. So it drops right into the water when the tide comes in.
So you said cliff, drop and sea.
You'll be fine, it's okay.
It looks kind of jaggy.
It's kind of steep, I suppose, but yeah, there's like really good, it's covered in really good holds. Shall we go down and get our rock shoes on?
I suppose we better get started. What do you want me to do? Do you want me to go ahead of you?
Or? No. Well, unless you want to go first.
No.
I can see if you get wet and then I'll follow you. Maybe.
Okay. How about I see if you get wet and then I'll maybe follow you. Oh, my feet are going to get all wet. Okay.
Well done. As I climb, you've got to pay at the rope like that.
Right, okay.
It's a very
Sorry, I'm just looking at the waves.
It's a very rushed daily lesson. I know it'll be hard to concentrate. Right, I'm going to get going.
You go and we'll figure it out.
Yeah,
okay.
We'll manage. Good luck when it's your turn.
Yes, thank you.
I think you might need it.
I just want to get going because the tide's coming in.
I grew up right in the centre of Glasgow, and then I moved out to the edge of the city when I was about 12 or 13. Started exploring around my house on my bike, a little bit further each time, and then I saw the hills, and then I thought, I wonder what hills they are. That sounded really interesting. And I looked in this map, and then I saw actually Scotland's covered in mountains. But then as soon as I started going to the mountains and doing a bit of hill walking, I immediately looked at cliffs, and that was like the next stage. So it was a very quick progression straight onto rock climbing. The first place I actually went rock climbing properly was at Dumbarton Rock. I went there because it was somewhere I could go to on the train. And I was like, wow, that's incredible. And the route on the main face there, this route called Requiem, was actually the hardest route in the country at the time. And so right on that first day that I went there, I looked at that and I said, I want to do that by the time I'm 16. And I think it took me 7 years to do it. There's a good hold up there, yeah, that's it, good. Okay, I've got you. There's also the element of dealing with danger and risk in climbing. That's quite a big issue.
It's just wet.
Can you get that hold and then pull up on that? Jam your foot right in the back of the corner. It's not really getting into dangerous situations and getting an adrenaline rush from that I was really interested in. It's that process of controlling everything and doing things that are potentially dangerous, but doing them safely. There's a good hold just above you, a bit further up. Brilliant.
It was just that first bit was so...
Yeah.
It was wet and my hands were wet and... This looks scary though.
Yeah, you'll be fine. I've got you on the rope so if you fall off you won't go anywhere. There's a good big ledge coming up soon. You can reach it. You might be... Yeah, that's it. Yeah, well done. Can you get both hands on it? And keep moving that left foot up the arête. Cool. That's you. Fantastic.
Oh, there we go. Oh.
Well done, that was brilliant.
Oh, right now I find it very on with heights, so I don't like that very much.
Yeah, sometimes standing on ledges is a little bit scary, isn't it?
When you did the most difficult route in the world, and you fell off 9 times or something,
Yeah.
and you fell 60 feet.
Yeah, that was maybe the only time in my climbing life that I felt that I was really taking things like over the line into something that I couldn't sustain that level of danger for more than a little while.
This is what I don't understand, why it's worth potential head injuries, potential death.
With the E11, I felt that I had an opportunity to take everything I'd learned over 12 years of climbing and do something that was really, really good, right at my limit and a really big challenge.
Mhm.
But if I could do it, it would be kind of special, and it would be something that stood as like would be my route.
Enjoy the sunshine now.
Yeah. We still got the second half though.
How does that compare with the bit that we've just come up?
It maybe looks like it could be a little bit harder than below what we've just done.
Oh, great.
Moving on the rock is its own pleasure, I suppose. Like running or dancing or any sport that involves some technical skill, you actually enjoy doing that well. And rock climbing has that in spades, I suppose. It's really complex movements you've got to master. You've got the holds, which give you, what you've got to deal with, how you've got to climb, but you can be quite expressive in the way that you've got to solve those problems. Really nice climbing. It's not as bad as it looks, actually.
Really?
Yeah, you'll be fine.
Okay.
It's really good. I'm just going to carry on and find the belay at the top.
Okay.
So the kind of routes that I do, I try a really, really hard route that I can't do at first. In fact, like for my route in Dumbarton Rock, I couldn't even hang on the holds at first. And then I got strong enough to hang on the holds, but then I was like, how can I get from this hold to this position?
It's too much of a stretch.
How am I going to make it work? And so I was just sitting on the rope for hours, like, well, if I move my foot there, move that hand, then move that foot there, and then I can get this hold. And it's like a puzzle you're solving, really. Go on, Rona.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know if my foot's going to stay here.
That's good, keep going. Come on. Yeah.
Oh. Nah, I'm stuck again.
You get really, really good at visualising how you're going to do stuff. And you get so good at it that you almost feel like you're there. How I was going to feel when I was above the rope and I was facing a big fall if I came off. So in that situation, you're imagining like the feeling of the space around you and the feeling of the rope going down, and you know it's going to be bad if you come off. But you're just concentrating on the next move and what are the next moves. How are you going to feel on this move? How are you going to feel on this move? And you know it's going to feel really, really hard. So you're ready for that and you're expecting it when you're actually there. Yeah, well done.
You can see I've not got the mobility that I used
Bit of
to
assistance
have.
to get your leg up there?
Yeah. Is that cheating?
Have you got any footholds to stand up on there?
Yeah, I've got a good one here on my
yeah,
left.
You stand up
and
on
my
that,
right
on
foot.
that right leg.
There we are.
Yeah, good hold there. Yeah, that's it, really nice. Oh, you're almost there. Brilliant. Well done.
Yay.
That was cool. That was awesome.
Well, you know, I might even be tempted to do it again sometime.
You reckon?
I might. I'm
Do you
trembling a bit, but
But your nails are okay.
my nails are fine.
Cairngorms to me is a great big green playground. You literally can walk out of, say, Aviemore or Nether and you're right in the heart of it and there's nobody there. I just think that it's a place with no fences a lot of the time, and I've fallen in love with it.
In this month's Secret Places, we've joined Cairngorm-based Pauline Sanderson on a bike route that's become a daily commute for this unlikely explorer. Earlier this year, Pauline entered the record books as the first person to complete a journey that, in terms of height, is the biggest in the world, from the Dead Sea to the summit of Everest. Adventure came to her later in life because she started work as a London barrister.
I just wanted to be a blonde, I think, and stand up and be the centre of attention. It kind of suited all my dispositions. So being a barrister, way to go. What a perfect tree! Oops. You should never stop playing, should you? I worked at Customs and Excise and did drugs, porn and VAT. And I took a year out travelling. But as soon as I came back after the year, I kind of knew the next thing was afoot because they sent me on this outward bound course for management, and I just loved it. When I have the sleepless nights and I get so excited I can't sleep and it's all in my stomach, I kind of know it's the right thing for me, and it's happened quite a few times, and that was one of them.
18 months ago, Pauline became the marketing manager at Glenmore Lodge, our national outdoor activity centre. And every day she cycles this 16-mile route over the Rye-Going Pass to work. This is the starting point for her adventures.
I saw this one flyer and it said needed 2 people to do the longest climb on earth, departing in December. And again, I had that funny feeling. I had the sleepless nights, I had the excited stomach, I had everything. And that to me, again, is a big signal you know you can do it. Because effectively, it was going to be an 8,000-kilometre cycle ride through 9 countries. But that's not technical, is it? You know, that's endurance, that's not technical. And I think by doing the Rye-Voen, it just gave me that confidence to think, I could do this. I do this in and out every day, and it's 32 miles, and I do a day's work. So if I do this and double it, then I'm probably up to what you need to do each day. So it was almost getting rid of one of the blockers that sometimes come up when people have an opportunity to say what would stop you doing it.
In the mornings in winter, obviously it's dark, and it actually felt quite moody coming home, just because, you know, a deer could jump out or something, and you're just spooked, aren't you? And it just has that mood about it. The beauty of it was these red deer, every now and then they'd just jump out at me. And fantastic! Me, the deer, and nature. Perfect. What a way to start the day.
This is the best commute in the world. It's just a stunning off-road route. 16 miles, 5 of it is on road and the rest of it is through forest. And it just opens up and you're coming out into a big window and it's straight down the valley. You can see the Cairngorms just as you're coming in. This is the territory that does it for me, really. I think one of my big philosophies of life is enjoy the journey, and the Everest Max expedition, we all shared that philosophy. So for the 13 weeks that we were cycling together, getting to the top of Everest wasn't actually the priority. It was the second part of the trip. We woke up every morning and probably were laughing within the first 10 minutes. We had a lot of apprehension from people going, oh, you're going through Syria, oh, you're going through Iran, oh, you're going through Pakistan, they're Muslim, there's an extremist, and you're a woman, why are you doing it? And at the end of the day, the whole trip proved a very big point. People are people and politics are politics. The hospitality that we received back to back through those countries was phenomenal. And like in Syria, this guy came out from his shop because we were just drenched. We only had body language between us, but he saw us and he came out with a tray of tea and somehow we communicated. It was fantastic. When you're cycling, you're going at a pace that is accessible to people who are looking at you as well as you looking at them. So, for example, in Pakistan, every time we stopped, we'd get out a football or a hacky sack or a cricket bat. So you became part of their territory. You weren't just somebody who was flying in, taking pictures and going. And that was the joy. That was a real joy. I loved that. I can put my hand on my heart and I can't think of a day that was a bad day. I feel incredibly lucky to have been in the right place at the right time to get the opportunity to do it. People often ask, has it changed you? It hasn't changed anything. It's added to my life. I'm a very average person and I've just done an extraordinary expedition and I'm really pleased I did it. If you do feel that you can do something, knock all the blocks down, then do it for yourself.
And that is the motto for all of us here on The Adventure Show. This time last year, I was cajoled into joining our team for Britain's toughest bike race, the Strathpuffer 24. There were 4 of us, and heading up our team was Nikki Wright.
We nearly have a sunrise.
This year we're upping the stakes and entering a team of just 2. Well, I've done my bit. So Nikki is being joined by fellow BBC presenter Lindsay Cannon.
I'm on my second lap of the course and things aren't going terribly well. Front brakes, I've lost them. I don't know what's happened. My rivets come out, they just don't work anymore. Took a bit of a fall down a steep section, landed on my backside, so there's probably going to be a big bruise there tomorrow. And in general, it's just a bit of a wake-up call.
Lindsay's a keen climber, skier and walker, but is new to mountain biking. So she's teamed up with expert Richard Drummond.
Generally on a race type bike like this, you would run with 20% sag. So
you're losing me, Richard. You're losing me.
your sag allows it to drop into bumps.
Has the sag got anything to do with my weight?
Yes, everybody's sag is different.
I had a feeling it might be.
This is set up too firm for you.
Does that mean I'm lighter?
That means you're lighter than the last rider.
Excellent result.
Ideally, you want your suspension to work as one.
Yeah.
If the front and back are working at different speeds and
Seasick?
different, yeah, it starts to get like a hobby horse, rocks
Yeah.
back and forward.
Okay. So what we're looking for is like a starting point, a benchmark for me in terms of the way the bike is set up.
Yes.
And as I progress, hopefully I'm going to progress, then we'll start tweaking it and fine-tuning it.
Yeah.
That's it, aim for me now, aim for me. Keep going, coach, go to the right, that's good. Good.
Back in Tiree, we've found the wind and the judges are on the road in search of the best beach for the wave event.
I'm the head judge here, so I make the calls on which beach we sail at. This is the spot for today. We have to go around the corner to a beach called the Maze. We've been in the Maze and sailed at the Maze for lots of contests. It seems to be the one with the best conditions. It faces west, so it picks up all the swell.
Which means it's all go for the windsurfers. Well, almost. And the judges aren't doing too well either. So never put your trust in mechanical power. As all the experts know, wind is best. Just ask rising star Jamie Hancock.
It is great to be out on the water by yourself with a few friends. You're being powered by the wind, bombing along in the foot straps hooked in on a harness. You're going pretty quick over water, and it's a really, really nice feeling.
The setup's the hardest thing, and picking the right wave, and you have to time it right. So when it's sort of, at its most critical, you can go down, get under lip, smack it, come back, and then you get another, and that's the ideal. You keep going like that.
It's got to the stage now where I try not to think about things too much. It just kind of all happens, and it's a real sort of fluid movement, and it feels really good through your whole body when you do it. A real excitement from it, I think.
It's almost like golf. You can play a whole round of golf. You hit one good shot, and it feels good. And it's the same with windsurfing. You can have one session, you hit a nice hit, but then you get one wave where it's standing up, and you just smack the hell out of it, and it just feels awesome.
We use the waves for power, we use the wind for power, and that's great. You're going along and all you hear is the water, flying past your board. And when you do a jump, you're gliding through the air. That's great, and that to me is a massive buzz.
In the first semi-final, John Hibbert's got his chance to demonstrate that adrenaline buzz. He's up against Paul Hunt, Matthew Wems and Phil Horrocks. And he's leading off in style. He's riding the wave, not really managing those crucial carving turns though. It's Horrocks now carving into that wave, but the wind's already slackening off and the waves aren't the size these windsurfers relish. But Phil's putting in a good long run here, managing a number of turns. Yep, you should be pleased with that. Here's Matthew Wems up and running. Nice little jump. But it looks like the waves are breaking very early, not giving the sailors too many opportunities to put in the turns. Paul Hunt now pumping the sail, and with some success. Oh, but it's really hard work to keep it going today. And this is how it stands at the end of the first semi-final. Matthew Wems and Paul Hunt have been eliminated, which means both John Hibbert and Phil Horrocks will go through to the finals.
When you're wave riding and wave sailing, you get a lot of your power out of the wave, and so you take a lot of speed down the wave and turn, and you get thrown off the lip. And it's sometimes easier to carry more power through on a bigger wave than it is on small waves. Small waves, you've really got to milk it and try and keep speed on them, which is quite tricky.
And in the lineup for the second semi-final are many of the big names: Andy King, Chris Audsley, Ben Prophet and Jamie Hancock. And it's Jamie now on his first wave. These conditions definitely suit him. He's shorter and lighter than most of the other sailors, which means he can get more out of these waves. Here's Ben Prophet now, but he's struggling. Oh, and there he goes. Oh, wiped out. Andy King's next. A good carving move. Oh, he's over as well. Now Chris Audsley, winner in 2004. Looking nice and steady. Oh, but he's in trouble as well. Some nice moves there for Andy King. Taking a good line there. All these surfers working very hard, but too many falling over. So at the end of the second semi-final, the big news is that both Chris Audsley and Ben Prophet are out of this year's Tiree Wave Classic. But it's Andy King and Jamie Hancock who made it through to the final. That's a huge disappointment for Ben Prophet at what, by his standards, was a very poor performance.
Just didn't really get in sync. I kept picking the wrong waves, and if you pick the wrong waves on a day like today when it's small, I mean, there's not a lot to choose from, you know. When it's bigger and you can get a real lot out of one wave, but when it's small, to fight back after you've had a couple of bad waves, very difficult to sort of stand out from the rest of them.
And so to the final of this year's wave event, and with the wind slackening off, the judges have allowed the competitors 15 minutes to wait for the best waves. And Phil Horrocks is off to a good start, trying to take an early wave. Some nice turns there. And a good length of run, just pumping the sail, get as much out as possible. Jamie Hancock now, picking up a wave. Much of the skill here is in choosing the best wave. And Jamie's getting in some nice turns, pretty good there. Andy King really working the sail, and a nice jump as well. And a couple of turns, but that wave has no energy left. Back to Jamie Hancock. That's a good wave for him. These lighter conditions are giving him the chance to pull in some ambitious curving turns. That's very stylish indeed. So Andy King's up and off again. Yep, another jump for him. He and Jamie seem to be making the most of the opportunities on offer here today. Not too many turns though. Oh, nice flourish to finish off. So 007 John Hibbert is up and riding next, licensed to thrill. But I'm not sure James Bond would think much of that. Andy King again, picking up a decent looking wave and managing. Oh no, that wasn't such a good call. Oh, but he's picked up again. Oh, and a stylish sail move there. And in the dying moments of the final, Jamie Hancock squeezing in just one more run. But then he just needs 2 good waves to impress the judges. And I think he's definitely made most of things here today. And there is the red flag. Decision time for the judges.
And winning today, wave riding Tiree, Jamie Hancock.
It was good earlier and it was easier, you know, to do well in the competition and stuff, but in the final there the conditions were very, very, very difficult, and where it was 15 minutes in the heat in the final, whereas 8 minutes for the rest of the competition, you had more time to get the 2 waves that count.
So here's how it looks at the end of this year's Tiree Wave event. John Hibbert takes 4th place, Phil Horrocks is in 3rd spot, while Andy King is runner-up. And here's the big news. For the first time in his career, Jamie Hancock takes the Tiree Wave Classic title. But last year's winner, Ben Prophet, is well down the list.
Today I finished something like 5th, which, to be honest, is rubbish. I mean, I didn't have the best heat, I didn't sail great, but then the 2 guys that beat me went on into the final to get 1st and 2nd, so I mean, I was beaten by 2 better guys today.
And that's it from this month's adventure show. But just before we leave you, a quick invitation or two. If you want to get in on the action, then why not join us for the last programme in this current series, when we'll be returning to Kinloch Leven and the Ice Factor for the UK Ice and Mixed Climbing Championships. They take place on January 27th, and there are big prizes for the winners. We'd like to see you, whether as a competitor or just watching the action. You can find full details at ice-factor.co.uk.
Whoa! That's a spectacular fall.
And finally, a reminder that in our next adventure show, we'll be joining Nikki Wright and Lindsay Cannon for that toughest of all bike races, the Strath Puffer 24. If you'd like to cheer us on, or see just how tough and unrelenting this course is, join us and the other competitors on January the 13th and 14th at Conton Forest, north of Inverness. Until then, goodbye.